Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something super fascinating and honestly pretty urgent: how sleep deprivation physically reshapes our brains. We often think of losing sleep as just a temporary dip in our energy, right? Something a strong cup of coffee can easily fix. But today, we're going to look at the hard, biological data to see what is actually happening inside our heads when we sacrifice our rest.
So tell me if this sounds familiar. Have you ever pulled an all-nighter? Or maybe just strung together a few days of barely sleeping and felt your brain literally slow down? We've all experienced that heavy, overwhelming brain fog where simple words completely escape us and basic tasks just feel monumental. Well, today we're going to connect that universally relatable feeling directly to the rigorous scientific data that explains it. Because as it turns out, that brain fog isn't just in your head. It's a physical, measurable change in your brain's structure.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the cost of sleep loss.
To really understand this, we have to recognize just how incredibly widespread this problem is. The epidemiological data reveals a staggering reality. Somewhere between 30 to 50% of college students consistently sleep less than the recommended 7 to 9 hours a night. This massive deficit is largely driven by intense academic pressures, social demands, and, let's be real, technology keeping us glued to our screens late into the night. And all of this leads to two really destructive patterns: acute sleep deprivation, like staying up for 24 hours straight to cram for an exam, and chronic sleep restriction, where you're getting less than 6 hours a night for days on end.
But before we look at the actual damage, we need to clearly define what cognitive tools are at stake here. When you skip sleep, you are directly assaulting your executive functioning. These are the higher-order cognitive abilities controlled by your brain's prefrontal cortex. It basically encompasses three crucial areas. First, working memory, your ability to hold and manipulate information. Second, inhibitory control, which is how you suppress automatic responses and regulate your impulses. And third, cognitive flexibility, your ability to quickly adapt to changing tasks. These are literally the tools required for problem-solving, goal-directed behavior, and everyday success.
Moving right along to Section 2, Executive Function Breakdown.
Take a look at this subgroup forest plot from a massive 2025 meta-analysis. We're talking about a synthesis of 39 different studies encompassing over 4,500 healthy young adults. By pooling all this incredible data together, researchers were able to calculate a highly accurate pooled effect size for exactly how badly a lack of sleep degrades those cognitive abilities we just talked about.
And here is where it gets really interesting: the specific numbers. The meta-analysis revealed a moderate to large detrimental effect across the board, but it wasn't an even split. Working memory absolutely tanks, suffering the most severe breakdown with a massive negative effect size of -0.71. Inhibitory control follows closely behind at -0.59, and cognitive flexibility drops by -0.49. Now, why does working memory take the hardest hit? It's because it relies so heavily on the prefrontal cortex. That's a brain region with uniquely high metabolic demands, which makes it extraordinarily vulnerable when you're sleep deprived. When you're exhausted, the very processor you need to hold and connect information just stops functioning optimally.
Which brings us to Section 3, inside the tired brain.
See, skipping sleep isn't just a mental hurdle you can power through. It physically alters the biochemistry of your brain. The evidence shows that sleep deprivation causes marked alterations in neurotransmitter receptor function and expression. What that actually means is the mechanics of how your brain cells talk to each other change. We see modifications in receptor subunit expression, shifts in ligand affinity, which is basically how easily cells catch chemical signals, and disruptions in signal transduction mechanisms, or how they pass those messages along. This happens particularly in the hippocampus, your brain's core learning and memory center, and in the areas responsible for keeping you awake.
So you might be wondering, how long does it take for these physical, structural changes to start showing up in your brain? Well, just 28 hours.
Yeah, just 28 hours. And this brilliantly illustrates the urgency of sleep. A truly groundbreaking PET scan study found that just 28 hours of continuous wakefulness causes a measurable buildup of connections in your brain. Specifically, scientists looked at levels of a protein called SV2A, which is a well-established marker for synaptic density. What they found was that the sleep-deprived group had significantly higher SV2A levels in the hippocampus, that vital memory hub, and the thalamus, which routes our sensory and motor signals. Extended wakefulness literally forces an overaccumulation of connections in your brain's most vital processing centers.
Let's unpack exactly why that happens in Section 4, the synaptic reset mechanism.
We know synapses build up when we stay awake, but why is that buildup the biological root cause of your brain fog? Well, the whole process is explained by something called the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis. Think of your brain during the day like a bustling city building new roads to handle heavy traffic. Every new thing you learn, every single stimulus you encounter, builds new neural connections, or synapses. But a city can't just keep building roads endlessly, right? Eventually, you'd get a massive traffic jam. The synaptic homeostasis hypothesis basically says that sleep is the essential biological mechanism for pruning and downscaling these neural connections. Sleep is like the nighttime maintenance crew that clears out all that dense, unpruned cellular clutter, resetting your brain so the roads are totally clear and efficient for the next day.
Let's actually put these two distinct physical states side by side so we can really picture what's happening in your head. On the left, we have the rested brain. Through the incredible power of sleep, synapses have been properly pruned, balance is restored, and neurocommunication is highly efficient. Your prefrontal cortex can effortlessly access working memory and exercise inhibitory control. Now look at the right, the sleep-deprived brain. Here, we see a literal synaptic traffic jam. Because the brain hasn't had the downtime to downscale those connections, SV2A markers are high, neurotransmitter receptors are altered, and the entire system is overwhelmed. This structural traffic jam is exactly why a sleep-deprived brain struggles so incredibly hard to process even the most basic information.
All right, let's talk about solutions in Section 5, reclaiming your cognitive power.
Now that we deeply understand the physical toll this takes at a cellular level, what are the actionable, data-driven takeaways? They're straightforward, but absolutely crucial. First and foremost, you've got to prioritize that 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. This isn't a luxury, it is a biological necessity. It allows your brain the time it needs to downscale those synaptic connections and restore cognitive balance. Now, if you're in a pinch and absolutely must stay awake, the research shows that a short 20-30-minute nap can be a huge help. Naps trigger slow-wave activity, which releases some of that sleep pressure. But keep in mind, a nap is just a temporary patch. It simply can't completely replace the deep, restorative maintenance work done during full sleep cycles.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a question to chew on the next time you consider binge-watching just one more episode or cramming late into the night. Knowing what you know now, that sleep loss isn't just about feeling a little tired, but about creating a literal physical traffic jam in your memory centers, are you really willing to sacrifice your brain's physical structure and executive functioning for just one extra hour of being awake? The science is abundantly clear. Protecting your sleep means protecting the very architecture of your mind. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and please, get some sleep.